Okay. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning. Who knows? You might be joining from the time zone where it's still early in the morning. Uh, really happy to be streaming for you guys again. This time I will be continuing the work on the Bedeviled Cattle, which is this absolutely crazy miniature that came out in the box called Toil and Trouble, which is alternative Zoraida. So this one is the alternative Bad Juju. So last week I did quite a I made quite a fair progress on him, painted all the gooey purple stuff, and that was the main part of the painting. Also the internal part of the mouth, which is lovely neon pink. Painted the kettle because if it's a bedeviled kettle, you need the kettle or the cauldron, however you want to call it. There is also a carrot inside of it. There are two tentacles, which are like his tongue or tongues, and there is still quite a fair share to complete here. And I will be starting with the chicken legs because they are so cute. And I will bring the yellow up. Good evening, or and good morning here. Nice to see you. So glad to see people from the land down under joining us. Wonderful. And Caterlama jam looks a lot less appealing with naked chicken legs sticking out of it. Yeah, we need to work on that. We need to work on that. So great to have people already joining in. So without further ado, I guess I will just go with the flow. And I think I will make them super bright and vivid because this is a highly dynamic miniature. So when it comes to miniatures that are, well, so dynamic, I like to use vivid colors. So I'll be using Iriel Yellow for the first highlight. So I'll just put it on the palette and start the work. So it's been a crazy day here. Started with wind and rain, ended with plenty of snow. So I even got to take the sleigh out when I was picking up my daughter from kindergarten, which was super fun because there wasn't much of it, so that was a solid workout. Now it looks pretty and snowy and lovely. So what I'm doing now is essentially I slightly watered it down. Remember, always thin down your paints because that allows you for more controlled work. And I'm just gently moving my brush along those nicely defined details on the chicken legs. It's just feels like the miniature is painting itself. And this is the experience I have when the quality is really good, which is usually the case for word models. And when there is, especially when there is texture, which is so clearly defined, because it helps you with placing highlights, defining where the shadows are. So just going along the finely detailed chicken legs, I will give them another highlight after pure Iriel Yellow. I think I will mix Iriel Yellow with some off-white just to keep it super bright. If it gets too bright, I will then give it a quick glaze of yellow ink just to keep it coherent, and then I can pick up some more details. So that's the plan to begin. And then there is some more texture, which will be white. So those are the different elements. I will also be painting the Tome of Spells. And I'm already bouncing ideas. What kind of inscription should I put in here? I was thinking about Hocus Pocus or blah blah. So if you guys have any ideas, feel free to share. I may just pick up your idea and put it live there once I get to painting the book or the magical tome that he's holding in its left hand. Bad ideas only. It can be controversial as long as it's not offensive. I can consider anything. So can be fun, can be ridiculous, can be can be controversial as long as no one would feel offended. So yeah, if you put if you're thinking bio is not a faction, no go. So many people would be unhappy to see that. I think I will go with Hocus Pocus or Blah Blah. Those are the first that came to my mind, and one of them will probably make it there. I mean, Blah Blah, like in Waldo's updates. Just to go with the crazy sculpt that I'm working on. Hocus Pocus. All right. So seems like I need to make it happen now. Hocus Pocus. I'll try to make it elaborate. And I'll do some hobby cheating because I may use a very thin marker for defining the letters that I will then highlight using brush. I'll see. I'll see how it goes. But Hocus Pocus just seems like fun. Not offensive for sure. No one will be unhappy to see Hocus Pocus. So the reason I've said about diluting your paint, thinning them down with water. Look, what I'm doing now is I'm going essentially over the same area with quick controlled brush strokes, and I'm just trying to target a slightly smaller surface. And that helps build those smooth transitions from recessed areas to the highlighted areas, and it just builds up. You don't need that many colors. All you need is essentially yellow and white. You can mix the yellow with darker shade first, and then put pure yellow, highlight it with yellow with mixed with white, and that's all you need. You don't need 10 shades of yellow. Although it can help if you have several miniatures using similar colors, then it might make sense. So a good sip of my yerba mate. Big fan of yerba mate. Keeps me awake, keeps my mind sharp, doesn't dehydrate me too much. So I will now mix some Uriel yellow with ivory just to keep it brighter, kick it up a notch. And I was also going to give a shout out to guys at goonhammer.com. Make sure you check out the page. It's a, well, just make sure you have time because there is so much content that you can spend hours there. But the guys at Goonhammer have been doing a lot of nice articles about Malifaux, introductory articles, just telling about the system, how it works, and now they are doing this series on different factions. And today you will see it in the Discord channel. It was shared in the content creators section, and there is a new article on the Neverborn, which gives a very good overview of how each master plays, why you would want to play Zoraida or Dreamer or Titania. And there are, of course, pictures of painted miniatures, and I'm to be supplying some of them to the guys at Gunhammer. They contacted me and I said, sure thing. I mean, just spread the hobby love. I think there is also one by Elinor, another word painter. Seems like the Pandora crew is painted by her as far that looks like her style. Hey there, my cloth. insight as to how to do the lettering, thin marker thin first sometimes. I have wondered how you get the lettering so fine in some of your previous miniatures like Fitzsimmons. Yeah, that's how I do it because I just have this thin marker. This is something that I learned a while ago. It's called black liner. It's 0.2 millimeter, so very, very thin. And I find it easier. It's easier to control at having the first go and doing the inscriptions, and then going over that with brighter colors. And that's how I approach it. So McBluff, how has your week started? Hope you're going strong, doing well. Those are crazy times. And sometimes I just pause and think, how did we work like 2 years ago? How did we operate? So much has changed. Now, so many jobs have switched to almost full-time work from home setup, which is my case. So I've been working from home like 90% of the time for the past year, I guess. Now going even brighter here. And it used to be such a hassle just to get the kids to nursery, kindergarten, get on a train, commute to work. Now, well, the obvious advantage is that I get more time with family and by extension more hobby time because I don't spend time commuting. Obviously, the relationship with other people at work suffers because it's hard to build relationship with people when you don't see them face to face. But there are some silver linings for sure. I'm pretty good, thank you. Under the weather over the weekend, got a sketch of Through the Breach concept a bit while. All right, that's nice. Can tell us a little bit about the character. I'm doing pretty well. My daughters are still on and off on quarantine at home most of the time, so just well enjoying their company, I guess one way to put it, and being quite productive with painting. I've already well this year, so for the month of January, I painted already 102, I believe, worth of in stones, right? In soul stones worth of miniatures. I know it because I keep track on the Word forums where we have this wonderful initiative called Painters Challenge. So quite a lot already this year and quite a few ambitious projects ahead. My main ambitious project is Zoraida 2 because I want to prepare a miniature that I could use as a proxy for Zoraida for the new version of Zoraida until the new one is released. And the plan is to use old Avatar Zoraida, which has this crawling juju on the base, which will be just perfect for the Kurgan. I'll just need to add some details to it, like more trees, maybe a bird, and the young Zoraida will be used as Zoraida too. The main challenge here would be somehow making moths, like she moths are the theme of the new Zoraida, so I don't feel confident sculpting them. I will need to figure out a way of just getting them there. So now that, yeah, month of Zoraida, that's the plan. That's the plan. And there is a box with Zoraida 2 on the way. It's on the way from Australia. It's been on the way for a couple of weeks. Seems like it made it to Poland. So once it clears customs, I can start working on it. because I haven't played Zoraida 2. I just want to get a good proxy at least until the new one is released. And that sadly that won't be in the first quarter, at least looking at the initial schedule of upcoming releases that can be found at the website. So I'll wait. I'll wait. I'll have plenty to paint in the meanwhile. I'll make sure to get mine when it's available, but until then I will just keep on painting other stuff. So now the feathers here, I started with this base coat of white tinted with yellow. And I think I won't be giving a glaze to the legs. I like them bright like that. And I will then just maybe a few more highlights on them. Not to overdo, but I like them the way they are now, which is very bright. I may actually give them a little bit of glaze with Lamentus Yellow, which is this very bright glaze. So why don't I go with this? Baba Yaga breakfast bowl. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Nutritious. Baba Yaga breakfast bowl. Yeah, I think it works because this glaze gives yellow a bit more vibrancy. It saturates everything quite well. So yeah, not a bad idea. Still, I may repeat the most protruding elements. So like the tip here, just to have some focal points slightly highlighted so that it's more eye-catching. Yeah, now I'm more happy with it. Yeah, but that looks like Baba Yaga breakfast bowl for sure. So now that the legs are pretty much done, I will go with a glaze of intensity ink called Swamp Brown. Seems appropriate for bayou-based creature. And I'll just apply it directly over those feathers because it's a nice warm shade of brown, slightly yellowish. I will actually mix it in with the glaze I used for the legs just to keep the color composition more coherent. And the left one as well. So that's it. Now I'll let it dry, and while it's drying I can already wet blend some highlights onto it. So keeping a fairly good pace here because I'm energized by my yerba mate, and I always, when I switch into this focus mode while painting, seems like the energy gets up. Lamentus yellow glaze. Yeah, thank you. That's the one that keeps it a bit more vibrant. So now pure ivory on the feathers. And I will be picking them out each feather individually. So this will be a bit of precision work. I'll try to zoom it in so that you guys can see it. There it is. And this is wet blended onto the surface, and the white kind of goes into the recesses, which is fine by me at this point. I'm okay to give it a more oily look because I will keep it a bit sharper with one more thin down glaze afterwards, and then I can repeat individual details just one by one. So I actually got to play some Malifaux last week, played 2 games, and it was fun. Both of them were with Zoraida, because she's my favorite master for playing Malifaux. So the first one was a league game. I just joined a Malifaux league, which is run in local meta in Warsaw. And I played a game of, what was it? It was Break the Line. And it was a really challenging map. Well, map was given for reference, and we needed to prepare terrain that looked somewhat similar. It was filled with hazardous burning terrain. So my opponent chose his crew very well because he chose new Mataket, Mekamimo, and she makes other gremlins around her resistant to hazardous terrain. And he had lots of models that could just safely navigate the hazardous terrain. My Silurids were up there turn 1 and kicking the cans, but they were overrun quickly. But I didn't choose a crew that relied on punching the enemy rather manipulating, so there wasn't much of power. I knew I would struggle with bringing Matake down anyways, so I just went with standard Silurid first mate setup. First mate did his 2 points with breakthrough. I also scored from 2 points from detonate charges. But I obeyed plenty of things. But I obeyed my things into position, and I didn't really do much of killing for in terms of just bringing down enemy. He had this rock hopper for claim jump, and I was just pushing it, obeying it to walk away from the center. So plenty of obeying, but mostly obeying for positioning because the obeys there weren't really heavy beaters. I did. I had Will o' the Wisp next to the radar to make sure that I can connect the doll with my attack and use then Wisp to put stand and slow on the doll and by extension on Ma. So that worked quite well. I had Widow Weaver, and Widow Weaver was creating Stitched that were throwing away weak cards from the game and causing, they were mainly a hindrance. So in the end, I lost the game. I lost the game 6-7, I believe, was the final score. It was a quite competitive and close game. I just didn't have the staying power to keep on kicking the cans because I was just overpowered. And yeah, and that's the story. So I lost the game, but it was fun game. It was fun game. Not that swingy because I thought that my opponent was pretty much in control and I was just playing the catch-up game, especially once I stopped scoring from the strategy. It's never a good sign when you stop scoring from strategy and your opponent can. I made this mistake that I had Silverit in position and I knew it would die and I wanted it to die, not to give out the point for detonate charges. And I had Will-O-Wisp in position to put oh yeah, the turquoise ones. Yeah, those are the ones. Thank you. Those are the turquoise ones. Fun models. I had Will-O-Wisp in position to just die if I used ambush. I didn't use ambush, and the opponent capitalized and put 2 scheme markers next to it, and got his point. So yeah, that's the summary of the game. And then I played a game against Riva, the first version of Riva, and I still had Zoraida on the table, so I thought, why the hell not? It was Corrupted Ley Lines. So this one, I played it. It was already late evening, so we played like 4 turns. And the final effect, the final result would be, let me just water down that swamp brown for one more quick glaze here. So the final would be around 5-5 here, I guess. And Riva, she has amazing capability to go back from almost dead. You can knock her down to, all right, the rest of the family. Yeah, put the right on the table. She's fun to play. She's a really great master. I enjoy playing her crew because it's like the possibilities. I mean, it's hard maybe to get into playing Zoraida because the main challenge is to just find proper way to use obeys because each turn you are spoiled with opportunities and you don't want to spend too much time contemplating them. You want to keep the game alive. So that's a struggle there. And speaking of the game against Riva, it was very close one, very swingy. I brought Riva to 1 health, turn 1, I believe. Then she healed almost to full. Then I brought her again to 2 health, and she healed again. And then I finally killed her in, I think, turn 3. But one thing about Zoraida is that one mistake I make, and I need to work on that, is she is strong. I try my best. I try my best, but the thing about that I'm still learning when it comes to using her efficiently is that obey is not the only skill she has. Actually, there are some other good abilities, so you need to remember about discarding those cards when opponent cheats, and opponents will cheat in your face a lot. You just need to be consistent. If you do it consistently, it's highly impactful. I mean, you can throw away or so many severe cards from the deck, from the flip, or keep the low ones in. That it gives you a lot of power. So the feathers are pretty much done. But there is this great ability called Hex, and I should have and I could have killed Reva much faster, but I kept on focusing on obeying, and obeying, which wasn't the good call because I should have focused more on. Instead, I should have focused more on using just one hex, give injured to Reva, and use the trigger for coordinated attack, and essentially have 2 attacks for the price of one without obey, and then using obey for more attacks. So that's lesson learned because that's just you get more value out of one action if it can trigger another significant action. And I think that's something that I need to work on with her. Just use the hex because it puts the injured on the opponent and it has high impact. Yeah, use let your wife use Zoraida and obey you. Yeah, why not? That could work. So I have this off-white and I'm already putting some layers onto the tome, the pages. I would just say that Zoraida is fun. Maybe it's not for everyone because she's a complex master. I consider myself well, not a great player. I would say a solid player, but I still have plenty of learning to do, plenty of experience to be gained. And with Zoraida, you just need those games in. You just need to use your models effectively. And having those arc nodes, so obeying or casting hacks through your own models, it's amazingly effective, but it takes a while to learn the setup well. For example, I like using the Spawn Mother with her because Spawn Mother is a very good beater. If she's focused, she can hit for 6 damage, which is huge, and put poison. So that's huge. She can summon the gaps. And she has stealth. So she's this big model with size 3. You can safely hide Zoraida behind her. No one can target Spawn Mother from less than 6 inches away. And Zoraida can conveniently just cast her obeys or hexes through the Spawn Mother. Although you lose the benefit of being able to throw away cards because you don't see anyone if Spawn Mother is in front of you. But if Assassinate is in the pool, that's one way of keeping Zoraida alive longer. So that could help. And besides, also Zoraida makes good use of models which are impactful, like the Hooded Rider, who has a high damage profile and plenty of movement. And Hinamatsu is amazing with Zoraida because the sheer number you can generate just out of triggers, and you can hit the opponents with hacks and have Hinamatsu nearby to generate another attack, which is on plus and which can trigger another attack. So a lot of potential with Hinamatsu. Now the book, yes, slightly looks better. I just need to bring back the pages which will be yellowed, and the cover. I'm not sure about the color of the cover of the book. I think I might go with dark brown or this reddish brown. That could be an idea. And then I need to do the bats. The tiny bat, even the bat looks like a caricature of the bat. It looks funny. It looks like it's got this super focused, like it's a tiny bat that's trying to look like a Batman, like a badass bat. Tiny bat wanting to be badass. So that's already quite solid progress made here. Oh, and guys, this is something that I painted, last 2 miniatures painted in the month of January. So 2 mannequins. And again, this will be used for Zoraida to good summon. They can take the hit. They have some armor. They can heal. They can put some nasty conditions. So they can do a lot of things, and they are cheap. And I just made sure to make the bases themed with my Neverborn. If you want to see pictures, go to Word Forums, the Painters Challenge for January, and join for February if you haven't already. Now the candles, because I've put some white on the candles and on the book, and the candles I think will be bright blue. So Athematic Blue is my go-to paint for bright blue. It's one of my favorite contrast paints. It's so good. It just combines so well with white base coat. Only the flames will be standard fire, maybe off green. No, I think fire. What I like about this Athematic Blue is that I don't mind it staining the pumpkin a little bit, because after all, when you get wax dripping on any surface, it stays there, and the surface could be slightly affected by it. And Leatherbound Book. Yeah, the first episode of Black Books. Not familiar with this one. Sounds interesting. Well, thank you. Those mannequins were painted over, I think, 2 lengthy painting sessions. during which I also listened to and kind of listened to some Vassal games because there are plenty of them now with new Mali Forward series, which is always a great opportunity just to I approach it as building knowledge about crews, how they unpack, how they. This is the most interesting part for me. Actually, the most interesting part of every Vassal game is the beginning of turn two, because typically turn one there is a lot of positioning. There might be some impactful actions in place, but it's mostly about positioning. And then turn two, things just start happening. Oh, you have a problem being colorblind. My paint jobs wind up being weird. I mean, then paint Neverborn. You can't go wrong with Neverborn. I mean, look at this guy. If I swapped all colors on it, it would still be okay. No one would say, well, that looks weird. No, with Neverborn, so there is a faction for you. Neverborn. You can go crazy with color schemes. Nothing holding you using anything you want. Like, who can tell you that this demon skin looks unrealistic, right? Who can tell you that this choice of color is wrong? So, yeah, that could be an option. Although I do recognize the struggle you must be going through when you want to get some painting done and things are holding you back. So really feel for you there. But still glad you get to paint anything, right? Still a good exercise. So now the flames on the candles. I will reinforce the blue on the bottom in a second. I will just keep the flames going by putting some red on top of them. Ha! Titania crew. Yeah. Yeah, Titania also. I mean, it's those are ancient creatures from magical forests, so who can tell you that this is the wrong color for bark armor of an ancient creature living for centuries in remote places, right? No one. So that's kind of liberating. And the Gorar, so the snake thing. I mean, even if you look at, I did some research looking at pictures of different snakes when I was painting it back in the day, and I mean, the sheer number of options was mind-boggling. It was really hard to make up my mind. I will put a little bit of blue, monochromatic color scheme, and painting mainly with shades and tones rather than different colors. That's one way of approaching it. I mean, one of my buddies who plays Gremlins or the Bayou, he paints his miniatures as ghosts, right? He just uses a glaze of green, touch of brown, different colorful base. He meets the tournament requirements of 3 colors for his miniatures to be considered painted. He hates painting. He's a great player, one of the best, but he hates painting. So different strokes for different folks, right? And the miniatures are so nicely detailed that all essentially you can just wash them with one color and they already look good. And if you're fine with just getting them painted to be on the table, I don't see a reason why you should not be doing that. So now a bit of red glaze to keep those flames up. Make sure they look like tiny candle flames. onto the book now. Making some solid progress. Colette Crew painted in black and white. Like in the way black and white movies. Yeah, that could work. Or, like in this movie or in this comic, in this graphic novel called Sin City, where it was black and white, but there were only some. Blood was, I think, red, and there was one character which was yellow. So he kind of stood out from the crowd. So black and white with one different color. So now I guess I will paint the book, and that's so to make it look like it's leather bound. Then the trunk of the tree. And also I'm still hesitating because there is this nice slimy technical paint called Nurgle's Rot. I've used it on the larva here, and I'm thinking about maybe putting it in here so that it looks like it's dripping from the mouth of the kettle. I will see. First I will go with the book, and to make it leather bound I will start with using a cartoon point list shading. That could work as well. Of course, go ahead and steal it. I mean, anything that I show here is meant to be stolen, right? Anything I discuss and say, because the goal is not to show you techniques that I use and I don't want you to use. I'm more than happy if you use the ideas discussed here or techniques shown here. I mean, that's the reason. That's the main reason I'm doing this stream, just to show you guys different approaches. And really happy that it actually inspired you to do something. So for leather bound cover, Gore Granta Flesh is the best choice. I will then reinforce the leather look with a glaze of purple, just to keep it a bit more saturated. And I think brown also works quite well with purple, so I'm kind of stippling it a little bit to make it look like it's seen better days. And by all means, go to the forums, share your works. And there are a lot of really good painters who are keen on sharing their knowledge, feedback. I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot from other people, and I keep on learning. I keep on being impressed and inspired by what I see there. And it's also great from community perspective, because you see guys who do those great battle reports on YouTube, show their works. It makes you just feel more connected, I guess. And word community is absolutely outstanding. I don't think I've ever seen any negativity there. I mean, of course, people can be sour and unhappy when new errata comes in and their favorite model is affected, but they get over it. So a bit more messy highlights, messy glazes to the cover, just to make it look more ancient. And now let's do the inscription. I will first try on a piece of paper, because it's roughly, I have 2 pages, so I could put Hocus Pocus maybe in slightly slanted, like Hocus Pocus, something like that, or Hocus Pocus on one page and then picture of something of fire or things blowing up in the second, or picture of like a sticky man figure, like to make it look like voodoo doll. Oh, come on, yeah, it's kind of you to consider it, but I'm more than happy for you to use this idea. Now, how to use Hocus Pocus here? Maybe before I go ahead, I will just slightly highlight it. I just wanted the front of the pages to be slightly brighter because then I will glaze over it with light brown, so it will be brought together nicely. But before I do it, I just want to make sure that the basic highlights are in place. And now, how to do the Hocus Pocus? It's not a problem of actually making that inscription there, but making it look good. Because I won't be able to write five letters here and five there. Let's see. First, it needs to dry, so I'll just give it a second. Because once the book dries, I will go to the pad and then just do some tweaks to the base, and this model will be more or less ready. Only the tree part done. I won't be doing this part on the stream because after painting, I will put some Vallejo Steel Water for the swamp effect on the base, and I will let it dry overnight. And we don't want to have a stream watching paint dry, so I will do it afterwards. But I'm prepared because once this guy is ready, I will. Hey again. Sure thing. I mean, drop in and out, however works for you. Good to see you're back, my boss. So once the Juju thing is done, I will be painting the Toad and Zoraida. So for now, let's attempt to make the Hocus Pocus. Let's see how much I will just. That's the advantage of those pre-assembled miniatures, that you can drag them out a little bit. You can bend them easily. And I think I will try this here with Hocus. Hocus Pocus. What do you know? I actually managed to log that in. Hocus Pocus. There you go. Hocus Pocus. It's there. So that leaves me with some space on the other side. So why don't I do another set of words of power, which would be blah 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 blah, or blah blah blah. I don't think I will squeeze in 4 rows. Blah blah and blah. That looks like a really old hex. Blah 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 blah, and exclamation mark, like bah humbug. Hocus pocus focus. I like it. I like it. Thanks. Glad you like the colors. So now, just to keep this sharp, what I will do is I will take a thin brush, put some white, and work it around the letters just to keep them locked in better. For example, here the B isn't formed that well, so I'll just make a tiny dot in the upper half, and there is a good B. And there is no space between O and C here, so can just work on that. This O is slightly too big. I will reduce it. Give some space between S and U here. Maybe just generally I will very lightly put some white on the letters because then they will get a glaze and they will look like they've been inscribed on that tome for ages. And this A needs a dot. Focus, focus, focus. You know what? I'll try to put focus there. Focus, focus, focus. Also, I noticed something small about one of the models. I'm still fairly new to Molyphone for the grid, so I like to go back and look at the old model announcements. I was looking at Miss Feasant's announcement and I realized the name of the Greyston was Sebastian B. Oh yeah, 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 that's true. There are so many small fingers. Focus, focus, focus. Let me just write it and I'll try to put it. There we go. We have focus, focus, focus. It might be blurry, but I'm just doing my best to show it to you guys. So, focus, focus, focus. Let me stop here for a second. And blah, blah, blah. So there it is. And now, just to make it look like old book, I will use soft tone. And I will just glaze it, use it for glaze. I will water it down slightly, just so that it's not that impactful. And I will give it a glaze. Make sure that it flows to the midsection. Well, it actually muddles things up a little bit, which is even better because the ink on the brush hasn't dried from the marker hasn't dried thoroughly, but that's good. That's good because I can still spread it around a little bit. Make sure I do the sides well because there are individual sheets visible. So once it's glazed, those pages will come into better visibility. Yeah, now it looks like it's been dragged through dirty water. Yeah, unfocused, focused. So there we have this ancient tome, and now I will kick it up a notch by using Magus Purple on the leather cover because it's leather bound book. So leather has nice depth to it. I mean the natural leather, not the fake one. And I also wanted to go better with the purple mass that is there. So it kind of reinforces the color while bringing it together in a nice composition with the rest. You know, my mom has always taught me to read the books with wash my hands before I read books. So if I think of this creature, it never washes hands, right? So anything it touches becomes slightly purple. So purple glaze makes a lot of sense. Thank you, McLaugh. I'm really glad you're liking it. So there we are. So I started with the chicken legs, the candles, And now the bat, the tiny little bat. So I will start with outlining it clearly in black, and for that I will use Black Templar. Just to define the wings, especially. This will be a bit tricky because those are really small, and I just want to define them properly. So just a smooth movement, one move from bottom to top and top to bottom, just to make sure that the line is distinctly visible. Then the other side, and again the other wing. This is a tiny bat that wants to look scary. And there are the ears, which I will want to make sure that the internal part of the ear is painted with bright pink, just to make them look fun. And the eyes will be glowing red, and the teeth. So there's plenty of detail actually. This could be a standalone miniature. It's so nicely detailed. I think I underestimated it. I just thought it's a bat, but it's a well detailed part of the model, and we need to do it justice with proper brushwork. And the back. So Black Templar allows me to quickly get this nice coverage of black, which with some of the white showing through, which creates this kind of highlight. I will push it more with some gray highlights. But for now, I just want to lock in the dark part. But it's great to see responses live for my painting. Really appreciate the comments in the chat, guys. Thanks a lot. That's why I'm here. Share my hobby passion. Show you guys tips and tricks I've learned along the way of my 20 plus years of painting, and interact with wonderful word community. That's the best part. So now the bat should be getting some more definition. You will see in a second when I turn the miniature around. Just make sure no white spots are there. Yeah, so there's already the black bat. It's got even tiny feet. Amazing. So now time for highlights. Let me just grab an orange. I'll just use lava orange from the army painter, which is a really decent color. Oh, got too much out, but that's not a problem. I mean, got too much out on the palette, but that's fine. I can work with that still. Now I will paint the wings, the interior of the wings, just giving it some basic highlight, because it's not a part that will be clearly visible, but it still deserves some love, right? So making sure I just focus the highlights closer to the middle, leaving the red visible closer to the mid sections of each membrane of the wing. The same on the back. You also, I think you said I may share my through the beach comes out. Yeah, go ahead. Oh, sure, share it. I mean, I actually read, no, I didn't read, I listened to a podcast there is this podcast called The Other Side. It's guys from the west coast of the US, I believe. And at the end of 2021, they recorded an episode on Through the Bridge, just talking about the setting, the mechanics. So I have some basic understanding of how it works. So I know that, yeah, go ahead and tell about your character. That seems interesting. I'd like to learn a bit more. Wow, 20 plus years break before that. Yeah, Malifaux does it to you. They yeeted themselves at you. That's correct. That's what they do. You know, when I first Malifaux miniatures I saw was the Avatar Justice. So the one that's holding huge scale. Well, it's like it's scaling. There is this big ram and crow, and I also saw the Seamus Avatar, and I thought this is cool. If those are collectibles, I want to paint them, and then it's a game, and you use cards for it, not the dice. And I think that the card flipping is just such a great experience when you play the game because you can kind of expect there is I mean it track at least of the years and weeks if you're really good at it and you can do it while keeping track of the game then kudos to you but and proper respects to you but not many people can do that but it's so satisfying because each flip in the game well most of the flips give this kind of adrenaline rush right you just flip the card and hope for the best. You can do some setup. There are some ways, some mechanics in the game that allow you to control what you flip, like Euripides or the Whisper upgrade for resurrectionists. But still, for the most part, it's entirely random. Well, not entirely, because you have at least knowledge of what has been flipped. So those look like some fierce orange wings. The hardest part was telling my wife and kids we all had to play. All right, the geek family. I love it. My kids are a bit too small for Malifaux. I mean, the older one, I guess she could get the concept. She's 6 years old, 6.5. So maybe I could play some henchman hardcore with her. Just a game on the smallest scale. That could work. And what I will do now is I will just very gently highlight the edges of the book just to make sure it's well defined. So almost pure white here, just going over the edges, not covering the whole surface, maybe a little bit of stippling of that highlight just to go with the damaged look that I'm after. Hopefully you can see it, guys. Because that just makes it more tangible, I would say. More tangible. That's a weird thing to say about a miniature, but I guess that's the intention, just to maybe kind of frame it better. And here you have some indentations on the cover, so I'll also use some very low-key highlights. Yeah, all the geeks. I think, you know, my kids are old enough that I can start playing some simple board games with them. And it's amazing when they get to the stage that they know the rules. And of course, they are kids, they try to cheat. But if they try to cheat, it shows that they're thinking, right? That they're thinking in a creative way. And when they see that they cannot really cheat, because I tell them, no, cheating is wrong, you can't really do it. Well, unless you're playing Malifaux, and then cheating is part of the game. But then they try to come up with strategies. And this is fascinating to observe. Bayou Bash. Well, could be. I haven't played the game. I don't know if it's what are the age categories for the game. The miniatures are sweet for sure. And I think Elinor and Big Deno Paints, those were two painters who tackled them. Really loved what they did to them. We'll just reinforce some highlights, bring back some lights to the book, to the focus, hocus pocus focus. There. Better now, maybe just a little bit more. Bayou Bash, that could be fun. So now the bat. The bat needs some love. So it will get some love with dark gray. Reaper paints. Those are fun paints because they have a bottle shaker. It's inside there is a piece of metal which helps you shake the paint and just make sure that the pigment is separated and that gets separated gets back to the paint and it's more the consistency is right. And the fun fact is that the metal part is in the shape of a skull because once I ran out of paint, I opened it. I thought I would take it out just to have a peek, and it's actually a skull, a small, tiny metal skull. I think those are US based paints, Reaper ones. Not entirely sure, but I think they are. So now defining the ears, the earlobes. I will fill that in with gray, then I will highlight it with white, and then I will glaze the internal part with pink. Because that's how I think I want it to look. Then the tiny nose, the forehead. I will just use the smooth motions to leave the brush strokes visible, just to make sure I go with the fur texture, which is a bit of a challenge because it's such a tiny element, but worth the effort. Just makes it look more three-dimensional. And an hour flew by in no time. Already 1 hour into the stream, and I don't know where the time passed. It just flies by when you're having fun. So here is a white part that needs to be covered, of course, and it will be covered with gray. So again, going with the fur texture, so maybe I will paint lines. I will highlight it along the length of the wing. And then the tummy, I will put some white highlights and then maybe give it a quick glaze of gray. Reaper definitely US. Most of my paints are Reaper because they have free shipping to Australia. Oh, not all right. Based in the US in Texas. It's worth a trip to go to the factory store there. Bring money because oh yeah. I was considering buying a whole lot a while ago, but the shipping cost would kill me. Shipping it over to Europe, well, the taxes, the VAT, it's like adding, you start with adding like $50 to the base order, and then it can get even higher. So risky investment. But the few I have, I bought, I believe, on eBay. I don't know if there is any European store that has them in store. Although I haven't really done my research because I've been using the Spanish AK-47 line most frequently recently. And that's one thing about the challenge because this month there is this added task to the participants to talk about the paints they use. So once I've submitted pictures of some finished works, I will make some comments on which paints I chose and why, and what I like about working with different paint ranges. I do not limit myself to one. I mix them up for a bit. I just like different ones for different things, different properties that they have. So it's really hard to draw a line between those are the paints I use, those are the ones that I don't, because it doesn't work like that for me. The triad system is a great one. Yeah, that helps a lot because you get 3 colors and you're set up for success basically. You can't go wrong with the triad system. But then you still need some paint colors to mix them up. So now I'm stippling in some gentle highlights on the areas which are raised, because I will then decrease the intensity of highlights with a targeted glaze. Just making sure I tackle only the most raised areas, like the tip of the wings. And I will also make sure to put some more white into the ear, because this will be glazed with purple. If you ship directly from the factory, if you find someone in the US to buy it for you, you can avoid the VAT. Yeah, you can. I could potentially order it to some friends in the US and have them ship it to me as a gift. Yeah, that could work, but I just have so many paints. I'm not in desperate need. I think I'm pretty set up with paints and I just buy them. I just have certain colors which I use more than others, and I like experimenting with different paint ranges, different producers. So not really needed for me now to make a large order, but if I go to US to Texas, well, that's a different story. I'll just make sure I bring a big suitcase. So now the bat is highlighted. I will use Nuln Oil, Vauxhall VX 220 back in the day. Okay, yeah, you can do it. You can use your US-based friends to help out. And now that I take a peek at the screen with Twitch feed every now and then, and just seems that this kind of colors work well for webcam because there's a high level of contrast here, and the intensity of colors is maybe higher than what I would typically have on my table. It's just the nature of this model, I guess. Now, the eyes and ears will be next. So for the eyes, I will just use Volupus Pink, which is this lovely contrast paint. Just give it a good shake. And fill the ears with it. Now, good for the eyes. I want them to be kind of eye-catching. So I think I'll start with orange since I still have it on my palette. And I'll just make a small orange dot. I'll try to increase its size by pressing my brush against it. Some detailed work here. Now the eye. Again, making it slightly bigger than it needs to be, because I will go with yellow in a second. And maybe, actually, why don't I use some pink for its nose? Because why not? So I will just use Emperor's Children pink layer paint from GW just for the nose and kind of glaze it in there because I have it thinned down. Yeah, it will be pinkish. Now the yellow highlight to the eye. Then white and red glaze. Just being a bit more careful here because I want to cover the smaller area with this highlight. And then even smaller area with white highlight. And again, if I was colorblind, and if I painted the model with yellow wings, black eyes, if I had all the colors shifted, it would still be perfectly fine because it's well, weird creature, right? That consists of other elements attached to it. And I don't think we could look at it as there is any degree of right or wrong involved, just a lot of freedom. Now I'll mix a little bit of white with pure pink, place some highlights on the nose, and I thought it also had teeth. Let me get those teeth out. Let's get them. I think those are here-ish. Let's say this one is a tooth. Fortunately, it's a bat. It's like a tiny vampire. It only needs 2 teeth. Looks slightly comical, but I think that might have been the intention to make it look like this. I'm the bat. I'm the Batman. Now, glazing time, making sure those eyes look a bit glowy. So, flooding them with red, letting it sit there for a few seconds so that the red tints the area around it, removing the excess, and there we have quick and easy recipe for glowy eyes. Doesn't it look cute? It looks kind of cute. And now maybe a quick glaze of light brown on the teeth. Just to make sure that they are not pure white. And here is the tiny bat. Let me just try to get it into focus because it's super small. But yeah, this is the little bat thing. Looks good. Looks really cute with this pink nose. Now the tree part, which will get some. I think I will use it with good old dry brushing. I will work on it with leather brown from Reaper, which is this nice bright shade of brown. The consistency is really great, and I've had this paint for maybe around 5, maybe 7 years. Could be. I'm probably bought them before my daughter was born, so probably more than 7 years, and the consistency is perfect, which just tells you a few things about the standard of quality that they have at Reaper. So now we'll be dry brushing it over this tree or root or whatever that is, because I want to highlight it considerably, make it much brighter, paler, and more pale, and then I will glaze over with some browns and greens, just to keep it swamp themed. Swamp themed. That's a tongue twister. Feels like a tongue twister to me. Swamp themed, swamp friend. That's a different one. Okie dokie, so getting those highlights in, and now getting them even brighter, maybe with grimy gray. And speaking of favorite paints, this has been my recent discovery, and I've stuck to them. So AK-47, those are Spanish, I believe. Super consistency. The bottles feel really firm and they lock in quite well. They twist in well. You can put a dot to have immediate reference for color if you store the miniatures at your eyesight. I have them above my eyesight, so I see the side of the bottle, but still a decent idea. And again, the consistency is just superb, and the covering properties are excellent. So I will not dry brush across the whole surface, just focusing on the raised areas. And I don't want to use contrast paints here because they would have too big of an impact. So I want to use them a bit more selectively. So there it is. And now time for glazes. And for glazes, I think I will use Rhineland Flesh shade because this is slightly reddish brown. It's super light, but it's slightly reddish. And I will just glaze it freely across the whole thing, the tree part. And this glaze will blend the colors in. It will make it look more structured, but then at the same time, the highlights I placed with dry brushing strokes only on the most raised areas, they still remain much brighter, so they are better locked in with the overall composition and the overall color I have, but they still look distinctly enough to be perceived as visual spot points of interest, which is my intention here. And while the paint is drying, because this is pretty much ready, let me work on the base now. For the base, I won't finish the base. No, not by far. I will just go with Blackberry Flesh, which, if you've watched any of my previous streams, you know that it's one of my favorite colors. Just to give this kind of idea of how grounded, how this miniature will look once it's fully grounded into proper base. But this is a great color for tinting other elements that are near the surface of the swamp, because the intention is to make it look like swamp. So I will just tint it slightly on the tree, at least on the lower section. And now there is the part where I'm hesitant, because pretty much done with the miniature. Of course, I will finish it off with swamp, which will be something like what I have here on the base. So somewhat similar shiny mix of different shades of green to give this idea of green mud, swampy water, toxic water, well, you name it. But the thing is that I like the way that this larva that it's holding creates a nice point of visual interest. And it's a slightly colder shade of green. And I think that the base will be quite dark with those dark, muddy, swampy water. So my thinking is here, maybe I will just use some more of the snurgle rot effect around the mouth area of what appears to be mouth, just to create another point of visual interest that would be kind of midpoint between this larva, green base, and some more green element here. So I think I'll go with it. Don't want to overdo it. So we'll just take it slow. I really like this Nurgle's Rot. Great technical paint because it's got quite unique consistency. So I'll just put it, some of it around the tentacles, which serve the purpose of tongue. Maybe a bit about around here. I think it works because it seems like it was too coherent here with too much of purple. So I'll just stain some of this purple with green, and this will kind of help me define the mouth because it looks like this huge mass of purple jam, and having some green here allows me for just creating a slightly more structured look of one specific area. And maybe, maybe it was eating larva and some of it is on its mouth still. Who knows what it ate? And I had a chat with the wonderful word hobby assistant, the Kimberly, who runs all things here. And she said that for her it looks like a happy creature. I thought it looks like a tormented creature, but now I'm trying to look at it as a happy, what? Happy swamp thing. Yeah, it looks happy. It looks like it's been eating. It's been nourishing itself on veggies. I think if you eat such larvae, there's got to be some good things in it, right? Things that are nourishing. When I think of those Bear Grylls videos where he was eating worms or larvae, I mean, the fatter, the better. So this might be one of those. You're right. So there is the stained face now. And this looks almost ready to me. It still requires some work, some more work with the base for sure. But it's already almost ready. So for now, I will set this one aside to move on to another wonderful creature I have planned for today. Let's just have a maybe one more look here. So we are midstream, which gives me plenty of time to focus on another miniature that I will be working on. So we have the book with Hocus Pocus, Focus, blah blah blah, mighty words of wisdom. Yeah, and the chicken legs look bright and vivid, which is what we want. Alrighty, time for some more work. Now I will move to the other two that I have planned for tonight or today. Let me just get something for reference. So for reference, what I have is this nice box called Toil and Trouble, which has this wonderful picture of Zoraida, which gives me an idea of already of a skin tone that I could be using. And you see, this is the bedeviled kettle that I've been working on. And the larva here is also quite green. So what is nice about this box, let me show it to you guys, is that it's packed in such a neat way that all the miniatures are packed into their proper slots, which is really nice. And of course the cards are different because those are the special edition cards, and those are the Wild Geist. And let me just show you guys how finely detailed these are. You have this tree trunk arm attached to the tree, some voodoo dolls hanging from it. So it's like a witch molding into a tree. You have some of the human leg being morphed into a tree trunk. Even the stomach muscles, the belly muscles are well defined here. But this is my favorite of the bunch. This witch, which has this face being, well, absorbed into some kind of magic. It's throwing a pumpkin. It's this nice lady, which I love the proportions here. They seem perfect for a witch. And she looks healthy and happy. And that's the third one. She also has something that looks like either enchanted poisoned apples or whatever it is. And those are also 9th editions that you have those pumpkins here. There are 6 of them in total. And I'll just put them in this to make sure they don't mysteriously disappear somewhere. Yeah, pumpkins. That was my first thing. I opened the box and I said, "Whoa, pumpkins! How cool is that? You get 3 pumpkins." I didn't even know that they are there. Just didn't pay attention. So there is a little bit of unboxing because it's not a common set. You don't. I've never seen it. I've never seen anyone use it. So I thought I would just share with you guys to show you. And there is even a slot for cards. You see, this one is designed to fit cards. I thought I'd just share it with you. If you liked it, you know where to get it. Just go to Word page, Word store, and I don't think it's available for general sale, but every time there is an organized sale event, it tends to be available. So what I can already tell by looking at the artwork is that she has a necklace. I mean, it's not a necklace, like a brooch, which looks like an owl. And I see some really dark purple, dark red for the cape, and kind of dark turquoise green for the hat. And the skin tone and the hair, this looks like extremely unhealthy, so like zombie-like skin almost. And the hair looks like it hasn't been washed in at least 1,000 years, so suitable for Zoraida. Skin markers, that's a good idea. I like it. I'll just set the box in front of me to have it for visual reference. And I'll start with Prince Oden, which is like one of the coolest alternative miniatures that I've ever seen, because this is the voodoo doll. It looks just amazing. And while I really like the chubby witch, this one is just fantastic. If it was sold separately, I would just buy it to use it for proxy with my regular array decor, because it looks like royal angry toad. Just pure nonsense. I love it. Now, what to do? What to do? I think I will just go with pumpkins. Since Kim started with pumpkins, I'll also just at least highlight them so that they are visible. So I'll use contrast Gryph-hound orange paint just to get them defined, to make sure that they are visible before I start working with other things around them. So the big pumpkin goes for Zoraida, of course. The happy smiling pumpkin. You know what? I will probably make them glowy. Glowy green. Because why not? What's stopping me? I don't know if I'll be able to finish both Zoraida and Prince Dolan in this screen, but if I don't, I'll just finish them off screen. And I will be definitely sharing them on my Instagram gallery. This one I chose to be partly submerged in the swamp water. That was my idea, because if I set it next to the toad, it looked too big and it took away the attention from the toad, and I want all attention on the miniature, not on the additions on the base. That's my approach. Now, next thing I will do is I will define the swamp water. So this area will be like swamp water. I just added a touch of orange to green just to make it look a bit more dirty. And I sculpted the base. I mean, sculpting is too big of a word to say. I just prepared something that would look like soil on which the frog is sitting. And the same here, I made this. Okay, actually this one was a resin made base with some tree trunks. Well, it's not tree trunks, maybe some large branches that are partly submerged in, because it's partly hollow, partly with two tree branches lying in the middle of it. So I will use it maybe I will put some dark gray here, and then I will tweak it with different shades of green once it's highlighted and once it's dry. But for now I just want to define the area on which the model is standing, and as you saw, I didn't even clean the brush while switching between different colors, just to keep the colors mixed a little bit, keep the base a bit more, well, let's say organic. And the same one under the toad. And the toad will be blue. Because why not? My initial idea was to paint it yellow or green, but it's just the most obvious choice. So that's it for now. Now let's let it dry for a second. And while it's drying, I'm already thinking about what blue paint to use. So most likely I will just use some dark blue to kind of lay good foundations. And blue can be nicely mixed with purple for shades. So I will go with Thalassa Blue, which is a super intensive blue. And it's too intensive, so I will bring it down with some Sacra Purple. Give it a good mix. Oh, hi Ben. Nice to see you dropping by. So, small creatures, painting small creatures here, not rats. This one is almost done. I will work on the base off screen because it involves a lot of still water effect, which takes hours to dry, and it needs to be applied in several layers over extended period of time. Whoa, 1,000 followers. That's amazing. That's a landmark. That's a milestone, right? A milestone for the Play Word podcast. Well, for not the podcast, but I mean the Play Word streaming. Great, great. It's a team effort for sure. So that's really great. Now I'll mix these two on my CD palette. Add some lemon medium to break the consistency a little bit. Obnoxious air horn, yeah. Woot woot. That's that's a thing to celebrate for sure. Let me test it. Still a bit too vibrant. So why don't I add a little bit of mid brown just to keep it a bit darker. Well, 2 drops will do it. Because I want this deep dark blue look. Oh, a cake. Oh, an incident, I bet. I mean, Waldo is a walking, talking incident, so whatever you place next to him results in some form of unstructured chaos. So there's the blue that I wanted, dark blue, which looks rather pale because I'm using white base coat. So what I like is that the consistency is super thin, so it flows nicely into the recesses. And this is so tiny compared to the other one. I need to really bring it closer to the camera to keep it in focus. There is the focus. Incident with the cake. That doesn't sound very good. The crown will be pure gold. I'll just give it a glaze because I will keep it darker anyway. So why don't I start darkening it already with this blue base coat? And in the interest of time, I believe I will blow some hot air with hair dryer on it, just to speed up the process a little bit. But you can already see, even after just, look, it's just a matter of one quick white base coat and a wash of blue. And you can already appreciate how awesome this miniature is. Come on, have you seen a better toad in tabletop gaming? That's a not good looking toad. Oh yeah, it is cute. It is really cute. Let me just get the hot air going. Speed up the drying process a little bit. Your favorite thing painted in 2021. That's good, no? It's a great miniature. I mean, just look at this facial expression. Not sure if you should say facial expression when you talk about toads, but I call it a facial expression. Maybe I'll just lower the camera a little bit for this part, just to automatically keep it closer. Yeah, let's see how it works. That's perfect. That's better. Now just a bit more difficult for me to paint, but easier for you guys to see. So now we see the next layer I apply. It just leaves more of an immediate effect, because the first one was just outlining it. Now this is about saturating it and really getting that rich, robust blue look that I'm after. I'm not too concerned about blue staining the base at this point, because I will clean it up later on. But we are already getting some rich blue, deep rich blue look on him, because it's a him, right? It's a boy, it's a prince. Now I will just make sure to remove the excess of paint from the area, from the recesses. And some more hot air. So apologies for the noise in advance. Now at this point, I can already start not just glazing over the whole thing again, but making it more focal. So by being more focal, I mean I'll just go ahead and use pure Thalassa Blue here for some sections, and I will continue using this darker mix in other sections. So let me use it on the raised areas, and then I will let the darker shade flow into those more recessed areas. And those words on the back, I will pick them up with either something darker or brighter. I haven't made up my mind yet, but this is already becoming to look more vibrant, and vibrancy is the thing I'm after here. Hey there, under construction paints. Thank you. Thank you, and glad you like the toad. It's a mighty toad for sure. Because we have a mighty bedeviled kettle. Let's see. All right, there it is in focus. And now the only thing I can do is to try to make the toad look as grand as possible. So I'm now tinting the raised areas with this Thalassa Blue, which is extremely vibrant shade of blue. I'm not going to paint the lower section beneath the mouth because this one may be just part of it. The rest will be much darker. And now switching to this darker mix, which I prepared for the base coat. So maybe I will switch to a slightly smaller brush. And I'm using an old worn brush that I don't care much for because the goal here is to absorb a lot of darker blue and just let it flow and spread it across the recesses. So for example, here in between the shoulder blades. Not sure if that's the proper way to refer to the anatomy of a toad, but then I've never been keen on biology. But the goal here is to have a clear distinction of where it's brighter, where it's darker, and then apply a few highlights there. It's not a large miniature, so painting it won't take that long. I definitely I will get it finished before the end of this, and then switch to Zoraida. Guess it's time for another sect of hot air. Although the paint has pulled up a little bit too much here. And now that I look at it, I might already push some more purple in. Because that's how I want the recesses to be perceived, more purple than blue. So I'll just spread the excess of paint away and just put more purple in the lower abdomen, beneath the mouth, just making sure that there is a balance between shaded areas and the recessed one and the raised ones. And I will start highlighting it in a second. I just need to keep the camera slightly higher. Just keeping on removing the excess of paint where it pulled too much to make sure it doesn't dry there, because then I won't be able to really properly highlight it. And I think I will use some Magus purple just to give some extra purple saturation to some selected areas, like the one here and there-ish, and maybe here as well on the side. Now I'm pretty much getting ready for the highlights. And for highlights, the plan is to use Thalassa Blue mixed with white, and then use maybe some Sapphire Blue as candy ink for some final glossy look. There's still the writing on the piece of paper, the hocus pocus, which I practiced because hocus pocus was put on the book. You have hocus pocus focus blah blah blah. The mighty battle spell. Let me just refill my mate, yerba mate. I have it mint flavored. I like when it has a slight hint of not the pure typical flavor, but some mixture of something else. Hello, word Kyle. Well, thank you. It's no one knows it's the guy pulling the strings in this crew, the mastermind. He just makes the big guy run and do chores for him. The big guy is just his messenger boy. Just goes smack face. I'll just croak in the shade here comfortably. So time for some more highlights here. Definitely, we need more highlight, and also great color to use is the automatic blue, which I will use for some maybe additional spark of light here. It's a mighty prince, the mightiest of them all. Now, for the highlight, I will start with Bone White, which I will be mixing a little bit into the Thalassa Blue. Just preparing my mixture. It will have a very thin consistency, so I'll need to switch to a smaller brush, absorb it, and start the build-up of colors. So this won't have immediate impact. I will need a layer of 2 just to build it up, but I've kind of set it up for rich saturated blue. So now that I have this solid base coat, it's easier to build up the color rather than going from pure white or pure black. So now it's about focusing on those larger folds, like painting the entire leg. For now, ignoring that there are some folds in it, because these will be highlighted and accentuated separately in a moment. Also ignoring the darker parts, which I tinted with purple. And the leg as well. Well, I know that this toad has been just sitting there and eating and not moving much, because it looks just fat and sassy. So continuing to highlight. Adding a bit more bone white, so the next highlight will have immediate impact. That's why I want it thinned down a little bit. I'll just add some water to the mix. Testing the consistency and the color on the piece of paper. Seems right. Seems about what I would want. And now I'm trying to actually not cover the whole section of the skin, rather going over narrower, over smaller area, just to start building the highlights, making sure that there is transition from dark to bright blue, from very dark, almost purple, to bright vivid blue. I will go to pure white with those highlights and then kick them back with a glaze of candy ink, which will go well with this vivid vivid palette that I have in mind. The nose, the eyebrows. So you see now I'm more selective about where I apply the highlights. I don't want them over the whole section, rather moving it closer to the front. Just quick, bold brush strokes. No time to lose, really. Can't go wrong if you have. It helps to have it on the palette. Let me just bring it closer to the camera because then I see the transition on the palette where how the color changes. I use it for reference because that's the kind of change that I want to observe on the model that I'm painting. So this is a quick reference. Now I will add some lemon medium just to make sure that the paint stays thinner, but still the pigment doesn't break away, which happens when you mix it with pure water. And this highlight will make it even brighter blue. That's why I thin it down considerably, just to make sure I have control of it. By control, I mean if I apply it all in a few thin coats, I will get the result I want. So going from the top, and again, just the raised area, kind of while it's still wet, blending it in and somewhat dragging it to the darker part, just to make sure that it doesn't look like a spot of brighter shade, but it's something that's been integrated into the overall composition. So quick brush strokes, but very precise brush strokes. It will look like a pale frog in a second, and then I will be bringing back the saturation so it's not going fully dark. It's just the stage it's going through. We started with bright shade, then moved to the dark phase. Now bringing back the light again, even making it too bright. There is some nice texture on the mouth area for the mighty prince. And here again, look, I'm not even reaching my brush to the back of the skull, just focusing on the raised areas and the areas closer to the edge. Again, working on the back, using the same color, but going over smaller surface. That's what gradual buildup of highlights is all about. Step by step. Of course, you could argue that high contrast is fine, I could have gone very bright blue over dark blue. I guess that could also work, but for this one I just want to spend a bit more time. It's a prince after all. It deserves some proper treatment with brush. And always a good idea to turn the miniature around a little bit when you work on it, just to look at it from a few different angles. Mighty Prince. Yeah, even I can even kick it up a notch with Ivory White, so much brighter shade of white, because the other one that I was using previously was Bone White. And again, lemon medium. Mixing it on the palette, having this very, very bright shade of blue now, and a very, very much thinned down consistency, just to target the most raised areas. And here as well. But by using the same color from the get-go and just adding to it, I'm building this gradual highlight. Now it's like, feels like I'm just dotting, because the space for highlight gets gradually, incrementally smaller with each pass. Hey Ben, cheers. Thanks for dropping by. See you on your stream later in the week, mate. Fully expect some more Outcast work from you. More Hamelin and his Band of Misery. There was a good conversation on Ben's previous stream about different cultural references, and you can argue that some of the inspirations are actually darker and more disturbing than what Word has made with them in the world of Malifaux. Like Hamelin the Piper in the original book, it's a guy who gets rid of the rats, and the villagers or the city dwellers don't pay him. So he plays the pipes and during the night leads all the children away. And it's a miserable town with no children. Such a sad, sad story. But then some of the old-fashioned fairy tales are really, really dark. And now I will go probably even to pure white. Then I will do the purple section. Maybe not entirely pure white, but let's say an off-white with a blue hint in it. Just to get a final touch on the most raised areas. The eyes will be maybe orange, just to have a element of contrast. I'll look at the color wheel. We'll look at it together. I will show you guys how I figure out contrasting color schemes when I work on miniatures. Now those words on the back, I will just pick them up with pure white. I mean, it's not pure white, it's ivory white, so it's an off-white with a hint of, well, yellow or very light hint of beige in it, but it's really, really subtle. Now more of them towards the front. And we are well into the third hour of the stream. I'm really getting into the groove now. Feeling quite comfortable with the progress made today. And once again, for those of you who joined later, I want to make a big shout out to guys at goonhammer.com. It's a website about tabletop games in general, but they've been doing a lot of articles on Malifaux recently, and now they're publishing articles on different factions of Malifaux. The most recent one is on the Neverborn, so check it out. It's in the content creators section. Also, big shout out to guys running the monthly painting challenge. Another great initiative on the word over at the word forums. So there is our guy. Now, in order to smooth over the highlights, well, before I get there, I will still pick out some of the details with purple. So mixing Sakura purple with off-white and just very gently bringing up the shades here. Maybe it's still too bright, so slightly darker. And it's amazing how much detail is crammed into this tiny miniature. And it's just, I feel like the miniature right now, it's just painting itself. I'm just fooling around with a brush, trying not to ruin it. And you have a witch, you have this amazing creature that is formed from cauldron and its contents, and here I am getting excited about painting a toad that comes in this box set. So now kind of redefining the area here. Seems like some kind of spam is happening in the chat. Whenever I see references to specific Twitter or other social media accounts, I'm just extremely cautious. So wouldn't advise following it necessarily, might be a trap. Some more highlights on the back. Now, kind of bringing it together. I will use Atamatic Blue because I think I'm still hesitating. Do I go with Candy Ink or Atamatic Blue? I'll go with Atamatic Blue because it's this optimal solution, I think, for what I want to get. Or why not both? I will just add a drop of Sapphire Blue and mix it in with Atamatic Blue, and I will get I can even go further than that. Make it a bit more bluish. Let me just get it into focus. There is our lovely Oden prince. Alrighty. Now this is the glaze. That will kind of help blend it all together nicely. And this will really look nice. Again, me getting excited about painting a toad. Everything is perfect. Please keep on watching. But it is a cool miniature. It is a cool miniature for sure. So now the highlights that I've made were I got to the point where there was a that distinction between the blue and white became really strong. So not what I wanted to have, and I made sure to quickly just switch back to glazes just to bring it all together nicely in a coherent manner. So I guess it's time for the darker sections. I will use some quartz magenta. Put some nice tint there. Can't go wrong with magenta and blue. And rather than it covering the whole surface, I will use the blue to sort of frame it. So the blue frame will go from the top and from the sides. And now it looks like desaturated blue with white highlights still visible. So it's really becoming balanced. Now as for the eyes, why not vivid green or even yellow? So I will start with warp lighting. Just making sure I get a decent tip to the brush. I'll start with green and then I'll figure out if I want to go to yellow because I can keep it green. Might as well keep it green. If I like how it plays with the blue, then why not? I'll just put some darker shades to better frame the mouthpiece. Just to make sure it's because it's got some facial expression I mentioned earlier. This is what I think of. And while at it, I might as well further glaze the crown because this will be golden shortly. And I need to still work over the front of the eye. And from this side. And from the back. Alrighty. Now maybe I will just speed it up a little bit. And let's make it brighter. So I will be using fluo paint for the eyes. And while I'm still pondering whether to make them green or yellow, I will just start with adding yellow to green and highlighting them. Then I can go from bright green, maybe to pure yellow, depending on how I like the progress. So making sure that I leave this darker spot in the middle, the vertical pupils. I can always let some. Alright, I will paint over it just to keep them brighter, because afterwards I can let some maybe red in. We'll see, we'll see. More of really stippling the highlights in. But it's already looking much, much brighter. So a bit more of build up. Looks like I will be going to fluo yellow after all. I like where it's going, so yeah, I'll just keep on highlighting. Maybe quick speed up. Just making sure this paint dries a bit faster. Oh, it's losing the focus, but hopefully it gets back in a second. Yeah, where is our focus? We need our focus. The prince demands attention. There it is. There is the focus. Looks like it has this facial expressions like, I'm slightly annoyed, but I'm fine with it. All right, now a bit white to the mix. Just for the final focal point on the very light dot. and very light dot to the back. Making sure I operate on gradually smaller area. Now I'm thinking the interior, I'll just use red. And I will show you what I meant by choosing contrastive colors just in a second. Let me just fill it in with red glaze. And from this side as well. So here's the color wheel I have for quick reference. And since the majority of the body of the frog is in various shades of violet, and blue, that's with a hint of red violet in the lower section. Hopefully you guys can see that. Now, when I want to make some elements well defined against the bulk of the color scheme, I just go to the other side of the color circle. So opposite to blue, I have yellow, orange, pure orange, and close to it I have green. So if you look at the opposite sides of green and violet, so very dark blue, if you will, green is the contrastive element, and yellow. So that's why, bearing in mind this kind of approach, we get this kind of result where you see immediately notice the difference. And that's why golden crown is a good idea. And for the build-up of golden, I will start with dark brown. Let me go to Tiger brown. And I will first use dark brown just to define the crown well. And then there will be some bronze and gold highlights. I'm not using non-metallic metal. I'm a big fan of using standard metallics because they give this shine. And besides, non-metallic metal takes ages. I would spend the next 2 hours at least painting this crown. There's nothing wrong with it, but I just want to make progress with the painting backlog. So crown is brown for now, but it will be golden in a second. So I'll just apply gold, glorious gold from Vallejo directly onto the palette. First, mixing it with brown, just so that I operate within the same scope of colors. And I use it for highlights, which will make it just better structured, I guess. That's the approach here. So now we have this bronze, solid bronze shade. Well, rather bright bronze even, what came out. So maybe I will darken it a little bit, slightly too bright. Now it's better. So bronze, bronze, bronze. Just making sure that there is even coverage. The mid section, no need to paint deep into the recesses because some dark is suitable there. And now for the golden part, I'll switch to finer brush. Try to bring this guy closer. And this is where the highlights will start becoming visible. I can then do some work with pure silver. And then I can actually do some even more work with glazes. I might apply a yellow glaze just to keep this gold rich and vivid. So now the golden highlights are really settling in. Now I'll mix some mithril silver, which is this extremely bright shade of silver. I'll mix it with golden and start highlighting, but not the complete area, just the tip of it. And now I will bring it back in line with the rest of the composition by adding, and don't worry about this brownish look, it will be deep green, but I'm just holding off on that a little bit to a little bit later. And I'm just reinforcing this yellowish glaze with Nasdaq yellow. And then once it's more yellow, I will just go with the silvery highlight again and just very, very lightly touch just the tip of the crown, making some nice focal points, rotating the miniature to make sure I place the highlights at angles which are relevant from the overview of from different angles. In and out. Started working for the B1 ship. Sure. I mean, no need to apologize. It's a long stream. I appreciate you dropping in, but please do your thing. Drop in and out however you prefer. When I follow other streamers, I also typically don't stay for the whole thing. It's just different things that we need to do, right? So not always able to follow the stream, which is perfectly fine. I'll just pick out the words again because they got a bit lost. So there's the mighty Prince Oden in all its blue glory. Just picking out some of the fine details. And you guys know I'm a big fan of Word, but just looking at it from objectively from hobby perspective, it's really impressive how much detail is packed into this really tiny model, because it is a tiny model. So some more on the front. And good, you're doing weird stuff, right? Nothing wrong about doing hobby stuff connected with word while watching a word stream. Seems like killing a couple of birds with one stone. Maybe a bit more highlight to the eyebrows. Kind of highlight here ish. Yeah. So I call this one almost done because I got this nice deep saturated blue look with distinctly different green eyes, some purple in the lower sections, grand looking golden crown. The highlights are nicely balanced, and what remains is the base. And actually, one more thing I can do quickly, real quick, just a glaze of blue over the front of the of its limbs, and I'm thinking maybe Tenebris Blue from Green Stuff World here will do the job. Just give it a better shake. Doomseekers. Yeah, the Prince. It's a fairly quick paint job because it took me, I think, less than an hour, but it was a really intense paint job. Really wanted to do this guy quickly for you guys to make sure you see the whole progress, because blue is not the most obvious color when highlighting. It's a bit tricky. It's easy to fall into this pitfall where you make too contrastive highlights and it becomes visually distorted. So it took my time, but I was actually able to progress faster than I had expected. But given the size of the miniature, I think it's understandable. It's a really, really small one. Just for reference, here is Oden next to a mannequin, which is like human size model. So there you have it for reference. Significantly smaller. So while we still have some time left in the stream, several minutes left, Doom Seekers, those are the rat guys from Warhammer, I believe. Oh, those are the guys on the wheels, I think, on those huge wheels, which make me think of Emissar from Bayou. So now for the radar, why don't I start with the big part, which is the robe, and I will paint it red, but it won't be this pure Blood Angels green. I want it more desaturated, so I'll add some purple to it. I'm just using the box art for reference here. So lovely Zoraida. It's a great master to play, not a great master to play against. I actually played only one game. It was pre-errata and M3 last year. So played with Titania, and I just made sure to quickly get rid of Juju and then keep Titania close to Zoraida. And Zoraida is very, very uncomfortable when the master, who is a beater, gets close to her because, well, especially a master like Titania who can attack her from distance. So she doesn't risk having her activation ended brutally after just one melee attack. This one has a tendency to kind of boil over. go over and expand, so I need to be mindful of that. Burning. Okay, those are Burning Man cultists. I see. That's why I thought I heard the name somewhere. That's where I heard it. So this looks not great because the white still shows through. It will look better once the paint dries, and then I can keep on saturating it with a touch of brown, maybe. Maybe a touch of brown would be suitable. Yeah, the other side has plenty of cool miniatures, and the preview from the previous week. The master for this, the master or the commander, I think it's the proper name for this new faction. Amazing. This like lady on a dinosaur or dinosaur-like creature. Pure fun. I don't have intention of playing the other side because I just don't want to commit. I heard good things about the gameplay, but I don't want to commit to another game where I'm already just kind of struggling to find time for playing Malifaux. But painting it, I would jump at the opportunity to do so because I like painting big beasts. I've painted 3 Malisaurus Rexes simultaneously in a batch, so that was a fun experience that took me a couple of evenings to get completed. So I will now move on to, now that the cloak is marked out clearly, I will move on to the interior clothes. So now I could have used a dark blue mix for the dress. I would need to bring it back. Actually, I will just go ahead and mix Thalassa Blue with the red mix I had for the dress, which will give me this dark blue look, which would be perfect. Just looking at the artwork for reference. Yeah, that's a good color. That's a good base color. Because I can tweak it. I most certainly will tweak it. Already, in fact, getting it darker and spreading the color over the dress. One day we need to make a challenge. How many miniatures can you paint to a decent quality over one stream? I think 2 is the max. Besides, to be fair, I had like 75 or 80% of the bedeviled kettle done when I started the stream, so I painted 1 miniature, actually the smallest one in the set, the Prince Oden, so it counts for like half a miniature. I don't think I would be able to get the quality that I would be happy with in less than 1 hour per miniature, unless it was a batch painting for maybe with airbrush, where I could really speed things up. Now the lower section of the skirt, while it's not visible really in gaming, still needs to be covered because you don't want those white spots to be there. They just wouldn't let me sleep peacefully if I knew that I omitted it. That's why using white base coat is quite good, because it allows you to really avoid omitting painting some parts of the model, because when you twist it around, it's just immediately noticeable where you haven't covered the surface with paint. Okie dokie. getting some more base color done on the radar. Maybe now the shirt. So where's my purple? Here it is. Sacra purple. And again, I will mix it with blue and red. Already the color scheme is kind of reminiscent of classic Disney movies where the colors were distinctly marked typically. And I can see that I skipped part of the robe here, so I will need to return to that in a second. That's part of the cloak actually. Yeah, just about 10 more minutes in, give or take. I should have the bulk of the core colors locked in, which will set me up for faster finish. I don't think I will be painting the radar on the next stream. It will be either the other witches from the box or something else, because I still have some interesting miniatures. I have a box with what's her name, Basilissa. That word was generous to provide a while ago, so I might work on her or the witches, because I might just go with the flow and continue with the same box. Time will tell. For sure I will be here next week, same time, spreading the hobby love. Talking, gaming maybe. I'm not a great Malifaux player, but I can stand my ground for a couple of turns at least. So happy to chat about my experiences. I think I will go to our gaming club and get a game or two in on Thursday, because those are the gaming days. And I'll tell you about how it went next time round. I just try to commit some time on a weekly basis to playing Malifaux, just to get better at it and just to get regular practice, because it's an element that can be easily underestimated. You can read so much, you can only read so much and theorize so much. If you don't put in time for actually moving the miniatures on the table, you don't really stand a chance of improving, which is tough in our COVID reality, but well, when there is an opportunity, it's good to take advantage of that. And the local meta in my area has been fairly active in recent months. We have several active players. Now a bit more of the purple in, just to saturate it further. Art challenge. Oh yeah, go ahead. We still have time. I mean, you can be terrible at Malifaux as long as you have fun. Doesn't really matter that much. That's my approach, because whenever I get to play in my local meta, there are typically players who play week in, week out, know my crew, but and their crew better than I know my crew, and have this natural advantage. But you know, we just have to accept it, that some people commit more time, have more time to commit, or are just simply better. As long as those are nice guys and girls, you just can enjoy playing against them. That's my mindset. But tell us about your little art challenge. Mac Bluff, because we still have about, well, a bit less than 10 minutes, but should be enough to give us an idea of what you're up to, what you have been up to. Now, since I'm painting the skin, rather than going for the obvious choice, which is Calimon Flesh, oh yeah, take a break, return stronger. You're more than welcome to join. You can join at any time of the year, whenever works best for you. Just making some order here. And I will prepare a mix for the skin, which will be Calimon Flesh, Blackberry Flesh, and maybe Glyph Charger. Those three, just to get this zombie-like skin. Small prompt challenge. I gave a list of prompts and everyone could take any prompt they wanted and make a 2D art from it. Alright, how did it go? Where did you actually show it? Where did you organize it? Just giving these three a shake before I put them on the palette. Just speeding up a little bit to make sure I get the skin blocked before the end of the stream. Just want to make sure it happens. You can do as many as you want. There isn't really time limit, and this is more just meant to be fun challenge of creativity. Yeah, fun creativity. I like the sound of it. This skin is extremely pale, so I'll put in more Glyph Charger. Yeah, that's the base coat. And I will just quickly apply it over the skin surface. It looks like this kind of rotten green, really dark. Might need a couple more layers. Looks like exaggerated type of color, but that works. That works for the colors I have in mind. Maybe a bit more of Calimon Flesh. Oh, it's just in the Facebook group. All right. So did many people sign up for that? Did you get any contributions to it already? Just making sure that the skin is covered, because we are heading into the final minutes of the stream. Actually post about it in the Discord too. All right, I need to have a closer look at it. I mean, I'm not really good at 2D painting or designing. I can just paint 3D painted miniatures. If you asked me to paint a miniature on a piece of something on a piece of paper, I would be hopeless. I could draw just a sticky man. And as for the hair, I will just lock it in. Just make sure I get all the fingers and the legs as well. So pretty much done with the base colors on this version of Mama Z, who is one of the oldest, well, not people, creatures, don't really know what she is, beings living in the world of Malifaux. She's been around since the very beginning of first edition. I even use her first edition sculpt as my main for gaming because I like it the most, although it may change when the new one is released. Wasn't really sign up or thing, I just left it there and anyone couldn't try it out. I mean, if you can put a link, or if we can put a link here, maybe someone could be encouraged to join in. That would be fun. just keep reminding people about it. So this kind of greenish shade for the hair because it looks should look messy and ancient as well. Should be fairly seamless to transition from the skin to hair because it's all messy and dirty and old. So as we are getting closely to wrapping up for tonight, today, this morning, wherever you are, just let me walk through what I've done. So this is the bedeviled kettle, what I started with. I was finishing it during the stream. It's a challenge that Mike Bluff has put himself. So should be somewhere on the Discord or on the Facebook page. So I did some detailing. I did the chicken legs, the candles, the book with Hocus Pocus Focus written in it. Those are, yeah, this is the monthly challenge. It's good to have it. And the 2D art challenge, the painting challenge might be more important to share. But yeah, I think if we could find a link to Mud Bluff's challenge, it would be sweet too. I painted the little evil looking bat. So added some more details to it. That was the first hour of the stream. Then in the second hour, I painted Prince Toden. So this little super chill guy. All right, there it is. Thank you for sharing it. Super nice miniature. Absolutely love it. Might be actually my favorite in the box now that I look at it. And I will just finish the base on it. The intention was to have this super smooth transition. It was an exercise in blending blues, which blue is not the easiest color to work with. So that was the second thing. And the third thing which I painted, well, I started painting was this version of Zoraida, where I mainly just blocked the main colors in. That's essentially what I did. I will continue painting it offline, share the finished result with you guys on my Instagram for sure and over Discord most likely. But I'm most happy with this guy. Really happy with how he turned out. Super nice miniature. Let's get some focus in to finish it on a high note. Yeah, there is the focus. Perfect. So this Prince Stolen wants you to check out other streamers because there are more streams coming later in the week. Just follow Word social media. You will get all the notifications needed not to miss them out. And thank you guys for staying involved in the chat. Really appreciate your presence here. Always fun for me to be here and